through it. So these things are important. My parents worked hard their whole lives to live life on their terms. They didn't owe anybody anything, and they could make their own decisions. And they etched on me the importance of hard work and personal independence, my first value. Because I see them, they can do what they want. Now, they lived frugally, because he was an engineer for the state, and my mother was a waitress at a restaurant. But they saved their money, and they didn't buy a lot of things, and that's how they lived. But times have changed. You know, I don't think they could do that now. You know, the way we are now, the way the prices have gone, two people have to work full-time, good jobs to make ends meet, it's completely different than when my parents were growing up. They didn't have the oil companies, multi-country corporations fighting them, and all those things. So we have all of these things to contend with. And I want to fight all of them. I talked about the Iraq War because I thought that was the most current thing. The second one is the way that campaigns are financed. It's absolutely absurd. We've got, on one hand, we've got an administration that's all oil company people, right? And you see, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Exxon had the highest profits, higher than Walmart. You know, what can you say? I don't know of any business model where a corporation makes more money when their costs go up. I've never heard of that before. But Exxon proved that it could be done, right? Right, because they've got an administration that supports that, and they have a monopoly, and we have to buy gas so they can raise it as high as they want. So it doesn't matter what their costs are. So anyway, that's important, the way campaigns are financed. When Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, he hit it right on. And there, I know how much power Northrop has here in El Segundo and all the others at crafting our foreign policy. And as long as campaigns are financed the way they are now, it's going to be very tough because they buy off members of Congress and get their votes the way they want it. And the only way to stop that is to elect honest people. That's the only way you can do it, and we need campaigns like this one that are financed from lots and lots of people with smaller contributions and nothing from corporations. So that's critical. That's number two. I think the energy crisis is going to cause World War III. I think it is so important, and it's been a joke the way it's been addressed by this administration. When Bush gave his address last January, you know, the State of the Union, what did he say? He was bragging that we've spent $10 billion on energy over the last 10 years? You've got to be kidding me. What a joke. We need to spend 2/3 of that every year. No, we're going to be, you wait till China and India and this comes up, there's going to be this squeeze for power. We only produced 70,000 engineers last year. China produced over 600,000. You know, our talent is leaving. Do you know that we didn't have one scientific conference here since Bush has been president? Not one international conference. I wonder why that is. Well, part of it is because of all of the Patriot Act stuff, that they just don't want to hassle with it. But the other part of it is that our talent drain is leaving. And my solution to that is we need an energy project just like Apollo was. The American public has proven over and over again, despite what you hear from the Republicans, that we are the best industrial capitalists. We will provide the capital for these projects. And we've proven it with the internet, with Apollo, and even before that with the Manhattan Project. We financed all those, and we brought the best talent in the world here to solve these problems. And this energy problem is not going to be solved by drilling holes in the ground and trying to pull oil up. We've almost hit peak oil now, where it costs more to pull it out than it's worth to process it and send it out. We have got to get a focus on alternative energy sources. And what this will do is it will provide 3 million high-level jobs. The education, I think the federal government should be like the NFL, and they should go after the best talented students and finance them through MIT or wherever it takes, so that we can develop these things that will prepare us to be a global leader. So So that has to be done. Internally, if we don't have universal health care, we're going to go down. It's embarrassing that the United States and South Africa are the only two industrialized nations that don't have universal health care. How can we possibly accept that? You know, is it somebody's fault that they get a serious illness or an accident? How? When I hear the Republicans say we don't have a right to health care, what are they talking about? If we don't have a right to that, then does anything else in the Declaration of Independence have any meaning? And we have the resources and wherewithal to do it, we need to pursue that. In my business, I meet with CEOs all the time in the district. And I have met with some of them about health care. And if I mention the word tax, they're against it, no matter what I do. Now, I took one recently from Costa Mesa, and we got on the whiteboard in his office, and I wrote down what he's paying now, him personally, for health care. What he's paying now. You know? And then I said, okay, if we had universal health care for a catastrophic, say everything that's $2,500 or more, that the federal government picks it up. You know, let's just compromise and say that, for the sake of discussion. That's what I said to this guy. And he said, okay. So then I said, this is what it's costing you now. If we do this, and we would finance this through Medicare, we would increase it, it would cost you 2.5 more points of Medicare, then this is where you would be after the fact, and it cost him like $340 less a month, and he was still against it because it was raising a tax. You know, I can't argue with that. If somebody is not going to talk to me, to take everything else off the table, and I have the same problem with Democrats. You know, if we get into their areas, we need to think beyond that. And what is the problem we're trying to solve? And let's solve it, you know, and let's get rid of these things that we can't touch. Just like as a joke about when Tom DeLay, what did he say last November? There was no fat in the budget, right? Right? Well, I read in the LA Times just a week ago where they listed $310 billion worth of fat that was in the budget. You know, it's all there. This is just a shell game. So we need people that will stand up and do this, and I really, really need your help. These are the areas that are important to me, and I need a really strong grassroots effort. I'm going to take Rohrabacher on in his own backyard. He and I know each other. Every time I meet with him, and I'll tell you one time in his office, I've got to tell you this story. In his office, he has this plaque behind his desk. Now, this was several years ago, so I'm assuming it's still there. And it was a Marine Corps plaque. And what it was his dad's service on there. But he has it behind his desk, and you know, the implication is that was him. He never served a day in the military, you know, that kind of thing. Every time I meet with him, when we talk, he's just always asking me about the Marine Corps and about Vietnam and all these things. He doesn't have anything to contribute. And his latest thing on immigration is a joke, and hopefully you'll read my op-ed piece later on that. But we're going to do this, we're going to take it in his backyard, and I'm going to go to churches everywhere else that I know Republicans go, and I'm going to win them over. Because they're fed up too. This Treasury Secretary Snow has got to go, right? Well, remember back in January, he was on ABC, and he gave this ridiculous assessment that said everything was rosy, and he said that the deficit would be cut in half by the end of Bush's administration. Now that was in January, and I'm sure a lot of you saw that. Well, on March 11th, he has a press conference and says he has to steal $9 billion from the Federal Employees Union retirement fund to buy some time until Congress ups the debt limit to over $9 trillion. Well, the last time I heard, when I hear the phrase buy some time, I'm thinking of the captain of the Titanic. You know, I'm not thinking of a Secretary of the Treasury buying time. You know, can you imagine the shape that our government is in over this? So I really need your help, and I don't want to go on all afternoon. Please support